Neither Ken nor Barbie know how to get to level 3, which is intimate communion in the context of individuated unique self. And as we are unique selves coming together, forming a unique we, right? We are intimacy equals shared identity in the context of relative otherness. That's real intimacy. They haven't gotten to that yet. And the movie stops at pathologized versions of level 2, because that's where culture stopped. Right? So what are we doing? Where are we? Where are we? Are we ready? Who's ready? Right? This is a big week. We are in week 2, and we're doing something utterly just ecstatically exciting, wildly important, filled with gravitas and filled with this kind of deep focus and presence, and filled with this sense of taking responsibility, stepping up. Stepping up to what? So what are we doing? So we're in one mountain, many paths. We're articulating the ground of a new story of value, rooted in first principles and first values, a universal grammar of value as a context for our diversity in response to the meta crisis. Because we've understood the meta crisis as being at its very core, underneath all of the generator functions that we've talked about in depth, at its very core, the meta crisis, which is a series of cascading crises in the objective, physical, instantiated world, crises that go from fractional reserve banking and its exponential growth curves to climate issues, to artificial intelligence issues, to et cetera, about 15 major vectors, to weaponized drones, right? There's a list of 15 core issues that we've talked about that generate a cascading risk landscape, which we are calling the meta crisis. We're calling it actually here. We've been talking about it since 2011. We're calling it the second shock of existence since 2011, right? The realization of, right, the potential death of our humanity. Right? The first shock of existence is at the dawn of history, the realization that I, as an individual human being, die to this world. Before I transition to the next world, I've got to die to this world. That realization of death is the first shock of existence, which presses us into new gnosis, into new knowledge, into culture, into the best possibilities of what it means to be a human being when we actually go to our deepest selves. The first shock of existence begins the story of the evolution of love at the human level. The second shock of existence is the realization of the death of our humanity. And that's existential risk to our existence, the death of humanity, or the potential death of our humanity. And that actually we could enter into an authoritarian dystopia, which is locked down, right, in a totalitarian world enclosed box in which we actually lose our humanity. That's the death of our humanity, or the actual death of humanity. Now I want to ask, and I want to just really invite everyone to come in so we're in this conversation together. So I'm going to go to the chat box, okay? I'm going to go to the chat box. Are we ready, friends? Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? Here we go. So I want to check in for a second, okay? Let's check in with me, okay? So I want to kind of bring us all together. Because here's the thing, we're a community, right? We're doing this as a community. We're in intimate communion with each other, and we meet every week. And during the week, Kristen's going to be inviting people, and we're starting this actually a daily practice during the week. We just spend, right, this incredible summer together, right? We spend 5 days together. So we're here every week. We're here for the summer. We're going to be doing daily practices. We can actually join every day. We're actually a community. We are a community of revolutionaries taking responsibility to evolve the source code, like Da Vinci and his cohorts did in the Renaissance, right? Where they said there were about 1,000 people involved in the Renaissance, and they said, we're going to take responsibility. Most of Florence in the Renaissance was not taking responsibility. There was a small group and said, okay, we can see around the corner. We can feel the gravitas of reality pulsing in us. We're going to step up. We are the quality of Eros. We are the voice of she. We are the evolutionary impulse in person, individually, and in this community, in this unique self-symphony. Okay? We are ready. Okay, we are here. We are not doomers, right? The doomer community, which says, oh my God, we've engaged in overshoot, we've violated all the planetary boundaries, there's nothing we can do, it's over. The doomers. The deniers, most of the world is in denial, right? We can't hold the possibility of apocalypse, right? And we kind of turn away from that kind of radical, we call it pessimism, and we deny it, we bypass it. That's where the overwhelming majority of the world is today. And then there's the dominators. The dominators, and there's different versions. There's the Chinese version, there's the Elon Musk version, there's the MIT Media Lab version. And we've talked about all of these here in one mountain, which says we got to dominate the system because otherwise it's going to fall apart. And I think Elon Musk has fundamentally good motives. Elon's a good man. He's got good motives, imperfect man like all of us, imperfect vessel for the light, but his motives are good and beautiful. And I think the MIT Media Lab that gets a million things wrong, but I think the essential motivation is actually good and dangerous, because the MIT Media Lab assumes, as does Elon, that there are no first principles and first values. The extreme version of domination, the Chinese CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, an extreme version of the domination hypothesis. Okay, we're saying no. The doomer version, the denial version, the domination version, that we can't go there. Those are devastating. What we need is we need a new dawn, a new dawn of what? A new dawn of desire. But a new dawn of desire means a new story of value, which answers three questions. Where are we? Who are we? And what ought we be doing? Those are the three questions, the three great questions of cosmoerotic humanism that are at the core of a new story of value. And a new story of value means a new story of desire, because desire implies value. Clarified desire equals value. And I just want to notice something here. Are we ready? Are we ready? Are you want to get not excited here? Wrong place. We are excited. We are alive. We are enthusiastic. We are enthused. We are filled with charism. Charism meaning spirit is moving through us. We are awake and alive. We're ready to play a larger game. And I want to invite everyone to this game. I want to invite everyone to this game because we're playing the infinite game. It's not a finite game. We're playing the ultimate infinite game. Okay. So first, I want to just ask Krista or someone else to put in the chat box. There's a kind of little piece I wrote up, which basically kind of summarizes the context of what we're doing. Now, in that context of articulating this new story of value in response to the meta crisis, because it's out of the new story of value that we generate a new reality. Here we go. Is that right? We generate a new reality. And we can't do this in the academy. I left Oxford, Zach left Harvard, right? It's not going to happen there. We are the new academy, right? Just like Marcello Ficino in Florence convened the Florentine Platonic Academy. This is the academy. We are it. Okay, this is it. We are it right here. And we got to be rigorous. And so I give you my promise. I will show up with everything I have. And I'm not doing casual sentences. Every sentence is well thought through, insanely footnoted, but I'm just trying to crystallize it and to encapsulate it so we can kind of know where we are. Okay. So in that context, what we are doing here is we are telling this new story of value. And one of the foils we're using to tell the new story of value is the way that culture tells stories, which is through movies. So in order to tell the new story of value, we need to tell it in response to the implicit stories that are being told today in culture. Does that make sense? One of the implicit stories being told today in culture that we're looking at, we've looked at like 10 movies in the last couple of years. But the one we're looking at right now is Barbie. We did a kind of take on Barbie in the mystery school. I'm putting that aside. Let's come back here. We did a first step into Barbie in mid-August before mystery school. That was kind of a first introduction. And then we did mystery school. And that's going to come out. Those are going to come out in their own ways. Elena every week is writing up what we do, and it appears on Medium. And so we'll also make sure that when we send out an invitation to this week's One Mountain, that everyone gets the write-up from the last week. And then Taheli does her gorgeous Dharma recap. Okay. So we did kind of in this round, we did kind of week one Barbie last week. We'd already done the mid-August general introduction to Barbie Oppenheimer. We did a deep dive in the mystery school, but then we kind of pressed reset so that we could all kind of come together, and we started last week. Does that make sense? So here's what we're going to do. Here's our plan. So now we're in. So David's going to read a code. Right, David. Now, David was wearing last week his Mr. Rogers sweater. We're going to see what he's wearing today. We'll check that out, see what's happening with David today. So David's going to read the code, which is the Barbie code. I'm not going to summarize everything we did last week. I'm going to dive into Barbie part 2. So here's the plan. We're going to do Barbie part 2 today. We're going to end. If you have to leave at exactly 2 o'clock, that's fine. We're going to end a little later. I'm going to go a little later today, but we have to be completely done right by 2:30, because 2:30 we're going into what are we going into at 2:30? We're going to a dialogue with Parallax, which is a European organization, which is a sister to us. Well, Andrew Sweeney, in any case, who's doing the dialogues, has been studying with us, and he's a dear friend. We're going to do a deep dive into kind of sources of the new interior sciences, and particularly a figure named Shabtai Tzvi, right, who's a 16th century Ottoman figure that actually birthed a lot of the best of modernity. He's a wild, complicated, insanely imperfect figure who is a very important source. And so we're going to be going into him at 2:30. So this is week 2 on how you read texts of culture. So it's a big deal. Okay, week 2 in this mini course, how to read a text of culture. Okay. So David, give us the code, and we're going to dive right into Barbie. Clip people, be ready, and we're going to have just an insanely wild, beautiful, but incredibly, and now I get a little choked up, right? Tears in my eyes, insanely important, right? This is what we need to do. We need to be able to become the new human. We need to move from Homo sapien to Homo amor. And Homo amor means the new human, the new humanity, in which I'm actually able to do sense making. And sense making is, right, the ability to make sense of cosmos, because cosmos actually lives in me. But I can only do that if I know how to read the texts of my own interiors, if I know how to read texts of culture. And I do that if I have a story of value, if I have first principles and first values that allow me to actually make sense of what's happening around us. Okay. So, oh my God, right? Are you ready, friends? Right? Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to play a larger game? Right? Are we ready to play a larger game? And the people want to say kind of, Gafni, just relax, right? Tap him down, tap him down. It's not going to work. Okay. Because I am so excited to be with you. And I'm so honored to be with you. And I'm so glad that I'm not being a professor at Oxford, right? You know, working on my tenure and publishing another irrelevant article. I'm so honored to be with you. And let's just be honored to be with each other. It's so honored to be with each other, right? Hell yeah. This is where it matters. We're those people. This is for real. This is for real. We're not doing a podcast. We're doing revolution, right? But not in the tacky, weird sense, for real, right? We are in Florence. We are in a time between worlds and a time between stories. We are reading texts of culture in order to evolve the very source code of culture, which I believe, based on everything I know, 19 hours a day for last 20 years, I think it's the only way to respond to the meta crisis. And I think the alternative is suffering of unimaginable dimensions for generations. Wow. David, take us to the code, read it slow and read it twice if you can.
So here's the code for this week. Barbie is the most dangerous movie ever made. That's the provocative part. And not dangerous in a good way, not in the way of Chuang Tse, who writes, I came to speak dangerous words. I ask only that you listen dangerously. Barbie has one message. There is no love story. Barbie and Ken are an ontological illusion. Einstein wrote, separateness, or the separate self, is the great illusion. Culture claims through Barbie that the love story is an illusion, that only separation is real. Barbie is wrong. There is a love story. Barbie and Ken love each other desperately. Barbie and Ken need each other, and Barbie and Ken are fully unique and autonomous. The great contradiction of autonomy and communion is resolved in ecstasy. The love story is real. We love Barbie and we love Ken. We love Ken and Barbie. And reality is Ken and Barbie. Barbie and Ken all the way down and all the way up the evolutionary chain. And I hope by now you realize that there's more than a literalist interpretation of what we're talking about in Barbie and Ken here. So I'll read it one more time and let it sink in, and maybe copy and paste it so we can meditate on it throughout the week. Barbie is the most dangerous movie ever made. And not dangerous in a good way, not in the way of Chuang Tse, who writes, "I came to speak dangerous words. I only ask that you listen dangerously." Barbie has one message. There is no love story. Barbie and Ken are just an ontological illusion. Einstein wrote that separateness, or the separate self, is the great illusion. But culture claims through Barbie that the love story is an illusion, that only separation is real. Barbie is wrong. There is a love story. Barbie and Ken love each other desperately. Barbie and Ken need each other, and Barbie and Ken are fully unique and autonomous. The great contradiction of autonomy and communion is resolved in ecstasy. The love story is real. We love Barbie and we love Ken. We love Ken and Barbie, and reality itself is Ken and Barbie. Barbie and Ken all the way down and all the way up the evolutionary chain.
Okay, we ready? Here we go. So step one, and I'm not going to review any of last week. So we're going to go, but that's okay. If you weren't here last week, you can totally step in right here, right now. Not a problem. Here we go. So Barbie opens with this scene where you see kind of Barbie in a bathing suit, the original doll. And then, we're told, and David, thank you so much. Beautiful. We're told that Barbie's been evolved, right? Barbie went from being the old level 1 Barbie housewife, beautiful woman, raising the family, the Barbie homemaker, classical feminine source of beauty, right? Which we'll call level 1 classical feminine, to integrating second wave feminism, right? The explosion, of the claiming of beautiful and gorgeous and intrinsic role of the feminine in all dimensions of society. So there's kind of the first wave of feminism, which is early suffrage, right? The very first feminists, both in Europe and in America in mid-19th century. But then kind of second wave feminism, let's stay really close friends, right? Explodes, in the early 60s. Betty Friedan writes the feminine mystique, the feminist mystique. And feminism explodes, and all of a sudden, Barbie is everything. She's a doctor, and she's a lawyer, and she's a gardener, and she's, winning Nobel Prizes, and she's an entrepreneur. And there's this sense that now we have equal rights and everything's solved. Right? There's this kind of utopian sense. It's all worked out. We've got it all worked out. We've got appropriate claiming, right, of feminine power. It's all worked out. That's how the movie opens. And we meet, right, a woman who's called stereotypical Barbie. And she's kind of our heroine, as it were, our protagonist in the movie. And she's perfect. She's accomplished. She's smart, right? She's elegant. She's poised. And as we noted last week, none of that is for Ken. That's just who she is. So she's already subtly, both in her power, she's the second level, right? This integrated feminine that's claimed, right? A lot of her potential capacities that had been split off in culture. Okay. And yet she's also, we have the fragrance that she's also stepping out of her actual relationship to Ken. And by Ken, I mean the very fact that there's a love story at all, right? The very fact that relationship matters, right? She's actually in her own place and she's got it all worked out. There's this beautiful scene in the beginning of the movie where one of stereotypical Barbie's friends, and they're all living in Barbie land. And Barbie land is the world of ideas. Does everyone get that? Barbie land is the world, if you will, it's the world of what I would call Platonic forms, right? Platonic forms mean Plato has this idea that there's the purified, clarified form, right? The structure, the clear idea, and the clarity of that idea makes a clarified culture. The clarity of that idea, those clarified forms, if you really just embody them, right, then everything works out kind of very well. And the fact that the more you're dissociated or alienated from those forms, they're called Platonic forms or ideas, the more things break down. That's Barbie land. But of course, Plato and Barbie land didn't account for the complexity of the world, the messiness of the world, the contradictions in the world, right? The experiences in the world that actually can't be dealt with through Plato and the Platonic forms. But that's how the movie opens. And there's this scene when one of Barbie's friends, right, says, oh, for me, logic and feeling work really well together and there's no contradiction at all. And my ability to fully experience my feeling doesn't diminish my logic and my logic doesn't diminish my feeling, and they're in complete and perfect balance. Remember that scene? Who remembers that scene? It's in the very, very beginning of the movie. It's an idealized world in which everything fits and everything's whole and everything's the way it should be. Okay? Okay, so we're going to start from there. Okay, so I'm going to look at a clip. And this is a clip that we looked at last week. And I want to look at it again a little more deeply. And it's when Ken says, right, I only have a great day if Barbie's looking at me, right? I only have a great day if Barbie's looking at me. Let's see that clip. Here we go. Clip one. We're going to do at least, I hope, 6 or 7 today. Clip one, take us inside.
Barbie has a great day every day, but Ken only has a great day if Barbie looks at him.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Ken. Hi, Ken. Hi, Ken. Hi, Ken. I got us both ice cream. Cool.
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Oh, hi, Alan.
There are no multiples of Alan. He's just Alan.
Yeah, I'm confused about that. Hey, Barbie, check me out.
Ken!
Ken?
Oh, hey, Barbie.
Hi.
How much of that did you see?
We saw the whole thing. Let's get you up on your feet, Ken. There you go.
You're so strong.
Use your legs. There you okay?
Yep.
Oh.
Totally.
Oh, looks like this beach was a little too much beach for you, Ken.
If I wasn't severely injured, I would beat you off right now, Ken.
I'll beach off with you any day, Ken.
Hold my ice cream, Ken. All right, Ken, you're on. Let's beach off.
Anyone who wants to beach him off has to beach me off first.
I will beach both of you off at the same time.
But you don't even know how to beach yourself off. How are you going to beach both of us off?
I
It
know how
doesn't
to-
make sense.
Ken?
Why are you getting emotional?
You're going to beach both of us
I'd
off?
beach.
Nobody's gonna beach anyone off. Okay?
Let's go.
Okay. Still good? Fix that.
Barbie, hold my hand.
You're okay.
Stay with me, Barbie.
great. Not even broken, you'll be fine.
Shredding waves is much more dangerous than people realize.
You're very brave, Ken.
Thank you, Barbie.
Yeah,
You know, surfer's not even my job.
I know.
And it is not lifeguard, which is a common misconception.
Very common.
Yeah, because actually my job, it's just beach.
Right.
And what a good job you do at beach.
You should heal up in no time. Actually, in the time that it took for me to say that sentence, you healed.
Fantastic.
Let's take a look. So we talked before about a structure called lines and circles. So that structure, which we did a lot of work on at mystery school this summer, that structure of lines and circles basically means, as we began to unpack it last week, that in reality, there are qualities. There are line qualities and there are circle qualities. Lines and circles are geometric, meaning they're structures, meaning of reality itself. Line qualities, circle qualities. Lines and circles are inherent in the structure of reality, all the way down and all the way up the evolutionary chain. A scientific way of talking about line and circle might be attraction and repulsion. Attraction, I'm allured towards, I'm drawn towards. I want to be in the circle with you. I want to be drawn towards you. We want to create communion together. Well, repulsion means get out of my space. I'm independent. I'm autonomous. So autonomy and communion, or allurement and autonomy, are another way of talking about lines and circles. Now, there are actually about 10 qualities of line and 10 qualities of circle. And each quality of line has a light expression and a shadow expression. Each quality of circle has a light expression and a shadow expression. And we did an entire mystery school on this in 2015. And we will be, I think I can commit that, by the spring, we'll have published a serious 400 or 500 page oral essays book on this line and circle vision of reality. Now stay close. Line and circle is phallus and yoni. But phallus and yoni, which is a human expression, although it actually started earlier in the animal and mammalian world, but that's an expression, right? Ultimately, it gets very distinct in the human world. That's an expression of a deeper quality in cosmos, meaning the quality of line engenders in men, but not only in men and women, but there's a particular quality at a certain, moment in time. There's an intense quality of line that lives within the masculine. At certain moments in time, it gets more intense. At other times, it's less intense, but there's basically strong line qualities that live in the masculine and in the feminine, but often more pronounced in the masculine, right? And circle qualities engender in the feminine. Some of that engendering is cultural, and other pieces of that engendering are essential. So in other words, line and circle are qualities of cosmos. They exist all the way down the evolutionary chain, the world of matter, the world of life, and the world of self-reflective human mind, A. B, they later, as humans appear, and even really before humans appear in the late animal or mammalian world, right? These qualities appear, but in the human world, they engender in men and women with a primary engenderment of line qualities in men and a primary engenderment of circle qualities in women. But all women have line and circle qualities, and all men have line and circle qualities. Some of the line and circle qualities are purely cultural, pure social constructions. Others are essential, right? Essential qualities, right? That live more essentially in men and women. Why? Well, because what we call gender is both a complete construction that was made up socially, and it also has a dimension that's real, that lives inside of men and women, which is why there's a hormonal uniqueness to men and women, and there's an actual anatomical brain structure uniqueness to men and women. There's a male brain and a female brain. There's a male hormone structure and a female hormone structure. Those are both real. They're absolutely real. And there's lactation. Women create milk. They have breasts. They breastfeed. They have wombs, right? They have qualities of nurturance and caring that are uniquely available, right, in that feminine form. And men have greater upper body strength. They don't have the risk of miscarrying during childbirth because they're not doing childbirth. So there's obvious, right, objective, essential distinctions. And that's just a starting point. There's also what we now know as what we call in the last 50 years or so neuroplasticity, right? Neuroplasticity means that even anatomical brain structures, right, can gradually shift, transpose, and evolve. And so while we might begin with a male and female brain, for example, right, both the male and female brain evolve. And so the male brain might absorb more and more circle qualities, and the feminine brain might absorb more and more line qualities. So we both have essential differences between men and women. There's a different quality to the feminine and masculine. Let's call it Hawaii and New York. Hawaii feminine, New York masculine. There are different qualities, right? Bali and London. There are different qualities. We know those qualities are different. They're the central field of Eros that engender in these two ways. And yet, there's not a sharp distinction. We're more than just man and woman. We're actually some unique combination of line qualities and circle qualities. So we're not just man, we're not just woman. We are a unique gender, which is my unique interpenetration of line and circle qualities. That was a very, very short summation of a huge piece of the new story of value. How many people got the basic outline? Who got the basic outline? Just gonna go find me in the chat box. We kind of needed that basic outline. I tried to do that like as short and succinct as I possibly could. You got that basic outline? Okay, good. Now, with that in mind, we go to that clip that we just saw. Okay, so in that clip that we just saw, what do we see? So in the qualities of line, line thrusts forward, line competes. You're either higher on the line or lower on the line. Line creates hierarchy, right? Line is always, I'm on this side of the line, you're on that side of the line. So it both distinguishes in very beautiful ways, right? It analyzes, right? It makes decisions, right? It moves forward, it's directional, right? It's all of those. And its shadow quality would be drawing a line in the sand, as we literally just saw, right, in that clip, and actually fighting over nothing, right? Just fighting in order to express my desire to distinguish myself from you, but not a real distinction, but a false distinction, not a real eros of distinction, but a false arbitrary distinction. You got that? Right? It's subtle. It's subtle. It's beautiful. So in this movie, right, in this beginning scene, we see actually Ken acting out the shadow of the line quality. Does everyone get that? In other words, he's saying, I'm gonna beat you off against you. Right? Remember that scene a little later into the scene after he's actually smashed into the wall. And we analyzed the scene in depth last week. So in this week's transcript, let's just put a link to last week where we analyzed this in depth, what happened in the scene. We talked about this in terms of the hero and the critique or the undermining or the mocking of the category of the hero. We talked about that in week 1. I'm not going to go back there. Now I just want to look at the shadow line quality. He's going to have a fight, right? Ken with this other Ken persona, this other man on the beach. What are they fighting about? Nothing. Does everyone get that? Everyone get that's a shadow line quality? Who gets that? Who gets that? Just check in the chat box and make sure people are with me. You get that? Okay. And then the feminine comes in, right? Barbie and separates between them. You absurd, dumb men, right? She doesn't say it out loud. She smiles, but it's obviously an absurd argument, right? The only person who's kind of unique, the only kind of vague hope for a future is this minor character, like a minor character in Shakespeare, which is Alan. He says, there's just one of me. And Alan is this kind of vague hope for a new possibility that never actually gets played out in the movie. But that's Alan. We're gonna meet Alan later. So that's one. But here's two. Here's two. What does essentially Ken say? He says, and the narrator says, and this is a theme that runs through the movie. Ken says this again and again at different key points in the movie. And at some point, we should make a collage of all the places that Ken says this. But for now, let me just say, Ken says, basically, I only exist, right, in Barbie's gaze. When Barbie looks at me, I exist. So after Ken smashes into the wall mindlessly, or trying to attract and allure Barbie's gaze, what's the first thing that he says? What's the first thing he says? Menka, what does he say? Did you see this? Everyone get that? He says, did you see this? He needs to be seen in Barbie's gaze. Now, the movie, as we pointed out already in week one, the movie mocks that, right? That's the male expression of the first level feminine that makes herself beautiful only to be seen in the male gaze, right? So the critique of the male gaze at level one feminine, right, where I dress up to attract the man, to seduce the man, perhaps in order to gain security, or because in some sense I feel like I don't fully exist outside of the gaze of the male gaze. And there's an enormous feminist literature on interrogating and critiquing the tyranny of the male gaze, right? So that level one feminine is now transposed to Ken, who's now expressing the same shadow of that level one feminine, but this time on the masculine side, on the male side. We talked about that last week. Everyone get that so far? So far, so good? Okay, now let's go to the next step. Let's go to the next step. Here's the next step. But is Ken totally wrong? And I want to start there because it's so beautiful, right? And it's so important. Is Ken totally wrong? He's not. Let's see if we can find this in our body. In other words, there's the pathological version of codependency, where I can only locate myself in your gaze. That's one version. That's one codependent pathological version. I don't exist outside of your gaze. Got that? That's the codependent pathological version. However, and here, open our hearts. Let's dive in. It's also true. There's also a beautiful and gorgeous realization that in some sense, oh my God, I literally don't exist without your gaze. I don't exist, right? Unless you're placing your gaze on me, right? You are the air I breathe, and I flower and I'm bloomed through your gaze. That's actually the nature of Eros. And that nature of Eros is not merely a human construction. Does everyone get that? That's actually the nature of reality. And essentially what the movie is doing is putting in the mouth, and we're going to see this throughout the movie, putting in the mouth of patriarchy, which is going to be Ken. Ken is going to, throughout the course of the movie, he's going to gradually incarnate patriarchy. In the beginning, he's just shadows, remnants of patriarchy. He's not yet there yet. He's going to incorporate patriarchy in a greater and more dramatic fashion. So Ken, who's going to later incorporate patriarchy, Ken is expressing what? The belief of the universal love story, but in pathological form. So this is a pathologized version of the universal love story. Now, what does the universal love story say? The universal love story says all of reality is relationships. And there's no reality that exists independently of relationships, which means there's no such thing as a thing. And if you read, for example, Pauli, right, one of the great early physicists, the founders of quantum physics, or Planck, another key founder of quantum physics, or Schrödinger, right? You get this very deep sense that they understand in a very profound way that there's no such thing as a thing. That's actually what modern physics tells us, right? The new physics, it's 100 years old, the new physics. Physics has taken many deeper directions, but the ground of the new physics stands, and the ground of the new physics says there's no such thing as a thing. Does everyone get that? The world does not just matter. Matter itself is a set of relationships. It's a set of allurements. And we call it matter because we need to give it a name. We need to somehow name it. What is the set of relationships? We call it matter. We call it an atom or a molecule. An atom is the building block of matter. But what is an atom? An atom is a set of allurements and autonomies. It's a line-circle relationship because reality is Eros, and Eros is neither line nor circle. Eros is the unique dance between lines and circles that exists between protons and electrons, which come together in that relational structure in which they can actually feel each other. They can, if you will, see each other. They recognize each other. There's intimacy between subatomic particles, and intimacy means something very specific. Intimacy means that we create shared identity. We don't actually exist without each other because there's mutuality of recognition. We recognize each other, we see each other. And from seeing each other, recognizing each other, we feel each other. We have mutuality of pathos, and we have a shared field of value together, and that creates shared purpose. That's the intimacy equation, which is one of the interior science equations of the new story of value, which is the recognition that we live in a cosmoerotic universe, and we are, as human beings, expressions in person of the cosmoerotic universe, and we call that new story of value cosmoerotic humanism. Now, stay close, stay very, very close, okay? So that realization that reality is a relationship means that in some sense, the proton and the electron exist only fully in relationship to each other. They don't actually, you can't actually tease them apart. And an atom is this place in which proton and electron gaze on each other. And that gazing, that mutuality of recognition, generates this. They actually feel each other, and they actually have a shared value. And their shared value is they both want to create something new, which is called an atom. That's their shared value, their shared eros, which actually allows them to have shared purpose. So in the actual nature of reality, reality is Barbie and Ken, right? Ken is actually pointing to something true. What is he pointing to that is true? He's saying, no, actually, I don't exist outside of Barbie's gaze. Now, it's a pathological version of that truth. So he's looking for fusion with Barbie before he's individuated. Now, stay close. There's an interior science intimacy equation. Here's the equation. Intimacy equals shared identity in the context of otherness. That's the beginning of the equation. So Ken has lost the second part of the equation. He doesn't have a sense of being Ken. And that's one of the things that the movie correctly points to. Ken needs to individuate, needs to become Ken. Barbie needs to individuate, she needs to become Barbie. That's a correct understanding in the movie. But they need to individuate in order to create intimacy. Because intimacy means that there is no Barbie without Ken, and there is no Ken without Barbie. And yet there's not just Barbie Ken, there's Barbie and Ken who create not fusion, Barbie Ken, but union, Barbie and Ken, Ken and Barbie, which is a larger whole. So the movie paradoxically gets a dimension of the intimacy equation, which is intimacy equals shared identity in the context of otherness. Ken ignores the otherness. Barbie's reaching, Barbie's pure otherness. She's like, Ken's a joke, right? She's nice to Ken, she's polite to Ken, but she's mocking Ken. Oh, Ken, you're a beautiful hero. Right? Look how beautiful you beach, but it's not real, as we're about to see in the next clip, right? She's actually completely alienated and dissociated from any sense that her identity is in any way bound up with Ken whatsoever. She's purely Barbie. Ken doesn't have a sense of being Ken, so Ken has to individuate. But we individuate in order to create a larger union, right? And it's the only true individuation is in the context of a larger union. The only mature individuation is the context of union. Does everyone get that? So I've got to individuate as a unique self, but my uniqueness is not just my being a separate self. I'm a unique expression of this larger field, this larger communion. And by individuating uniquely, I can then create with you a new, unique, larger union, a new intimacy. right? The movie is already saying in the first clip, it's mocking the notion. It's expressing the notion that I only exist in your gaze in pathological terms. So let me say it a little more clearly, okay? A little more clearly. Is everyone getting this? It's deep. It's deep. This is not, it's deep, it's beautiful. So level one is the pathological version. Pathological version is, I only exist in your gaze. Level one. Level two is we individuate. No, we're not just fused, we're individuated. Right? So level one is we have fused identity. There's no me without you. There's no you without me. There is no me at all. Right? That can't be true. I've got to actually individuate. Right? If I'm only I, because I'm seen by you, and you're only you because you're seen by me, then I'm not I and you're not you. Everyone get that? And if I'm only I, because I'm seen by you, and you're only you because you're seen by me, then I'm not I and you're not you. There's just fusion. So we need to individuate. That's level two. Level two is I individuate. Okay, I've individuated. And I don't want to be fused with you. I want to be in some sort of partnership with you, right? Or I don't need you at all. I'm individuated. I'm separate from you. That's what Barbie's saying. There's no love story. I'm just Barbie. But I do need to individuate. So there's this realization at level two that intimacy can't just be shared identity. Level one needs to be level two. Intimacy, shared identity in the context of otherness. Okay, so far so good. But then if you read the intimacy equation more clearly, and we'll put it in the transcript, it's intimacy equals shared identity in the context of brackets, relative otherness. This might be a great time for somebody to put the intimacy equation into the chat box. Okay, intimacy equals shared identity in the context of parentheses, relative otherness. I mean, it's not absolute otherness. We're actually part of the same field. We actually don't exist independently of each other. We don't exist independently of the larger whole. And we don't exist independently of unique relationships that take place within the larger whole. And it's actually, reality is not made up of things. There are no things in reality. All things are relationships. Reality is, at its core, relationships. That's what reality is. Reality is relationships. 1, 2, reality is evolution. 3, reality is the evolution of relationships. That's the nature of reality. Okay? So Ken is actually pointing to a truth, but the movie mocks that truth. What's the truth? I actually don't exist independently of your gaze. Without mutuality of recognition between us, there's no me. Ken gets that, but he gets it in a pathological version. He knows the truth. He doesn't quite know how to articulate it. He doesn't know how to be Ken and then say to Barbie, oh my God, right? I'm now going to be Ken. And then from that place of being Ken, I'm going to create this shared intimate communion with you. He doesn't know how to do that, and Barbie doesn't know how to do that. Neither Ken nor Barbie know how to get to level 3, which is intimate communion in the context of individuated unique self. And as we are unique selves coming together, forming a unique we, right? We are intimacy equals shared identity in the context of relative otherness. That's real intimacy. They haven't gotten to that yet. And the movie stops at pathologized versions of level 2, because that's where culture has stopped. How many people got any of that? Who got that? How many people got that? How are we doing? Okay, this is deep. My friends, this is deep. This is deep. This is not, we're going deep. Okay, you ready to take the next step? Okay, let's take the next step. We're doing 4 weeks in Barbie. This is week 2. Okay, so I'm going to say one more thing. He says, you know, Ken says, I'm going to beach off. Okay, and I just want you to notice this for a second. It's very beautiful. Okay, he says, I'm going to beach off. What does beach off sound like? It sounds like I'm going to beat off. Right? It's this male masturbatory moment, but not in its beauty. It's not the beauty of a masculine self-pleasuring, because actually the masculine has lost its own access to the beauty of its self-pleasuring, much like the feminine has. Self-pleasuring is actually is an act of enormous beauty. It's being madly in love with the field of reality that lives in you, but that's not available. I'm going to beach off. And beach off is this, it's got this sense of degradation, right? It's this line quality in its shadow form, right? It's this desperation, right, to feel alive by drawing an arbitrary line in the sand, which is often what male masturbation becomes. Right? Pornography began, right, as a structure to allow for male masturbation, right? But not in its beautiful sense, not in the beautiful sense of self-pleasuring. We actually we've lost access to that. That's a different conversation, but it's a subtle play in the movie on beach off and beat off that kind of plays in the background. How many people can kind of feel that? Can you feel that? Right, the beach off is, right, there's that subtle play there. Okay, now let's go look at the next clip. So the next clip we're going to look at is clip 3. We're going to skip clip 2, which we're going to come back to. We're going to go to clip 3. This is a very important clip. How long is it? It's about 3 minutes or so. I want to watch the clip carefully. We're actually looking at text of culture.
Wow.
You can go now.
I thought I might stay over tonight.
Why?
Because we're girlfriend, boyfriend.
To do what?
I'm actually not sure.
Oh, but I don't want you here.
Is it Ken?
Ken's just a really good friend. And this is my dream house. It's Barbie's dream house. It's not Ken's dream house, right?
Right, as always.
And it's girls' night.
Come on, Barbie, summer party.
Hurry up, the president's here.
I am, you're welcome.
Every night is girls' night.
Every night. Forever.
Every night.
Forever and ever. Good night.
Good night. I love you too. I can't. I gotta go.
Wow, who caught that? Who caught the brutality of that? Okay. And the reviewers don't catch it at all. That is a brutal scene. I just want to check in the chat box before we say anything about it. Who caught the brutality of that? It was brutal. It was brutal. Okay. So how does the scene open? Ken tries to kiss Barbie. Why is he trying to kiss Barbie? Because as the great Christian mystic Meister Eckhart almost said, I'm paraphrasing him, reality is kissing itself all the time. Or as the interior sciences, as Hebrew wisdom say, reality is sod haneshikין, it's the secret of the kiss. Right? It's the kiss that's at the very heart of reality. And if I had time now, I would play a clip, and maybe we'll have it for next week, just of people kissing. Right? There's a beautiful clip that we've played at Mystery School. It's just an incredible clip. We could put it maybe in the transcript. We'll put a link to that clip of people kissing. Kirsten, do you remember that clip that I'm talking about? Incredible clip. Okay. So he leans over to kiss her. Why does he lean over to kiss her? Because he's messed up? Because he's pathological? No, because he is the universe, a love story in person. And is he leaning over in order to abuse her? Right? To sexually harass her? No. Right? He's yearning. And as my dear friend Warren Farrell has been the vice president in charge of gender at the Center for Integral Wisdom, which we've now renamed as the Center for World Philosophy and Religion, since 2010 or 11, which is 12 or 13 years. And Warren and I have done, so many conversations about this. When Warren points out in his own writing that the masculine, in the way that culture is structured, risks rejection 500 times, right? And when the masculine moves towards the feminine, right? In the way, right? The masculine has to take risk after risk after risk. And he actually details kind of the 25 different moments in which the masculine can be rejected. And all of that's encapsulated, right? There's incredible vulnerability. He's reaching forward. And what's the look in Barbie's face? What are you doing? She's not on the field of allurement, because Barbie is saying there's no love story. So the movie is pathologizing the sense that there's a love story. We pointed out last week a couple of ways that it happened. Now this is the second way we're pointing it out this week. It's pathologizing the kiss, which is the core of reality. A. B, right? What does Ken say? He says, could I stay over at night? And she says, why? Why would you stay over? There's nothing for us to do. There's nothing between us. There is no shared identity. There is no yearning that's real. There is no longing that participates in the field of Eros. There is no field of Eros. There's no field of allurement. There's no field of value. This is what we said last week. When we talked about ChatGPT-4, when you look at ChatGPT-4, which is an expression of machine intelligence, which is actually an oracular, O-R-A-C-U-L-A-R, an oracle, right, summarizing where culture is, it tells us, A, that value is not real, and that love as a value is not real. It's a social construction. It's made up. There is no universal love story. So what does that mean? There's no girlfriend and boyfriend. That very structure doesn't actually exist for Barbie other than as an artificial social structure when she says to Ken in the first scene we saw, you're so brave, right after he's idiotically smashed into the barrier, right, in order to obsessively, pathologically gain her gaze, right, in a tragic sense, right? So she'll posture, it can be part of the polite social convention, but there's no ontology of the kiss. There's no ontology of Eros. There's no ontology of girlfriend and boyfriend. And so she says, you can go now. Who can feel the rejection? Who can feel the rejection in that? Who can feel the rejection? Right? And then she says, it's girl night. It's girls' night. And then she says, every night is girls' night. Right? Every night is girls' night. And then she says, every night is girls' night forever. I want you to stay with me for a second. Every night is girls' night forever. So forever is a quality of eternity. Forever. When you actually fall in love with someone, and falling in love with someone is not that one person that you've declared love to, which is beautiful, but we fall in love, and there's a much wider sense of falling in love. I can fall in love with 30 people, with 30 men and 30 women, but I don't mean falling in love in the romantic sense of we're going to get a U-Haul and move in together, but falling in love means I'm blown away by your beauty. I can't live without you, right? Now, there's ways in which we have a much smaller circle of people that we really fall in love with. Maybe it'd be one person, maybe two, maybe three, right? There's different levels of falling in love. We were doing a major event in 2014, and our board chair then, who's been a dear friend over the years, John Mackey, John, who founded Whole Foods, right? John turned to me and I turned to John and we said, I'm in love with you. And so falling in love means I don't have identity without you. We actually have shared identity in the context of otherness for real. It's deep, it's real. And when you really fall in love, the deeper you fall in love, and there's many different levels of falling in love, right? Many, many different levels of falling in love. But when you really fall in love deeply, you say, oh my God, forever. Forever, right? Falling in love is a quality of forever. And the movie, not intentionally, right? The writers aren't doing this intentionally. They're not philosophers taking intentional philosophical stands. As we've said many times, culture speaks unconsciously through the pens of the scriptwriters. They say, girls' nights forever. So forever has been hijacked out of the love story. Right? There's only a kind of narcissistic I, a neutered I. There's no Eros. There's no girlfriend, boyfriend. There's no kiss. Right? Does everyone get that? And then as she walks away, what does he say? He says, I love you too. What does I love you too mean here? Friends, what does I love you too mean here? Ted, let's read it carefully. It means she doesn't know how to say I love you. Right? I love you too is placed in the mouth of this pathological, emasculated masculine who's caricaturing the masculine, not embodying the masculine, and all he can say is, I love you too. Right? So he's a caricatured version, but he's actually reaching for something real, but she can't say it. It doesn't exist for her. Stereotypical Barbie cannot say, I love you. Does everyone get that sentence? Wow. So stereotypical Barbie is in these three levels of the masculine and feminine. She is feminine level 2, right? Who has asserted her autonomy, but who no longer has any sense of needing a man, right? She doesn't need. And at level 1, right, there's some way in which, in the healthy forms of level 1, men and women need each other. Now, at level 1, there's some polarity between men and women. There's some sense that we're playing different roles and we need each other. We correctly want to liberate ourselves from the constriction of those roles. We go to level 2, but then, right, and classical level 2 in culture, I'm now not talking about the movie and culture, right? There's the sense in which women individuate, which is healthy. They break, right, the tyranny, right, of the feminine role at level 1, but then they get to this new place, which is, why do I need a man? What would I need you for? There is no love story, right? Wow, that's tragic. And the masculine at level 2 feels like, who am I? I knew what it meant to be a hero when I was the primary breadwinner, but now in so many houses across the world, the man is not the primary breadwinner, right? That's going, less and less men are primary breadwinners. Wow, what does it mean to be a hero? Less and less men are heroes in war, thank God. But so what does it mean to be a hero? Who am I? Right? When masculine sexuality is demonized, when the essential nature of the masculine is portrayed as inherently brutal by much of second wave feminism, so I don't even know what it means to be a hero. I'm completely lost. So I'm going to be a hero by beaching, this arbitrary mocked version of the hero, right? But yet Ken is holding this longing for the love story, but the movie culture, by placing that longing in the persona of Ken, who's going to be fundamentally mocked throughout the movie. Ken is never going to be redeemed in this movie. You can have certain moments where we have some sympathy for him, but Ken will not be redeemed in this movie. Does everyone get that? That's a big deal. Wow. Does that just break your heart? Okay, we've looked at a second scene. Okay, we're gonna go to prayer now, and I just want to thank, prayer's like wildly important. We're gonna go to prayer now with Krista, and we're gonna go through next week. We're gonna start at 1 o'clock. Taylor's gonna do a Dharma recapitulation, and then we're gonna have this is a complete our gift to you. This like huge Barbie seminar, reading movie seminar. I'm going to ask everyone if you can. If you can't, if you just start with next week, that's fine. But if you can, read the transcript of week 1 and week 2, which will be up on Medium. Okay? Or listen to the recording. But if you can't, just start with next week, and we're going to do a couple hours. Again, complete our gift to you. We're not commodifying it. We're not monetizing it. Right? This is complete our gift to you and how you read culture. So we're going to do a big, huge week next week. We're going to go Barbie all the way. Okay, that's going to be next week. That's week 3. And then the very last week, we're going to do the last piece, which is just going to be an hour, short, kind of last one, Mountain on Barbie. It's going to be our 4-week reading course. Okay. Wow.